I spent $38,000 building a retaining wall to prevent erosion. The city engineer approved it. But my HOA hit me with daily fines, threats, and legal notices, just because it was 2 feet too high for their taste. I'm a civil engineer. I know how water flows and soil collapses. That wall wasn't a vanity project, it was safety. I'd moved to this small, wooded subdivision 2 years ago after cashing out of a downtown condo. Quiet cul-de-sac. Deer at dawn. Thought it'd be perfect for my daughter. But on move-in day, a man in cargo shorts introduced himself not as a neighbor, but as the architectural review chair. He frowned at the tools in my truck bed. 6 months later, my backyard started slipping, literally. Heavy rains caused a minor landslide, and my oak tree teetered toward the neighbor's fence. I hired a geotech firm, got permits, filed a stormwater plan, and built a reinforced retaining wall with drainage tile and concrete footer. 2 feet taller than what the HOA guidelines recommended, but exactly what the city required. Then came the letter, violation, unapproved structure. Daily fines of $150 to begin immediately. I called their office. The city signed off, I said. Do you want the permit number? The woman replied like a robot, our standards supersede city height allowances. That's not how jurisdiction works. She hung up. I went to the next HOA meeting. 30 folding chairs, 6 smug board members, and 1 very loud projector. I brought binders, stamped engineering plans, and a map showing how the neighboring yards benefited from my wall. One man stood up, Mike Felder, VP of the board, and said, "We can't make exceptions just because someone has credentials. Otherwise, what's the point of a committee?" The whispers started soon after. I noticed one mom stopped waving at me during school pickup. Another neighbor casually mentioned that some people think you're trying to build an ADU back there, not a wall. I was baffled. I hadn't said anything about construction beyond what was necessary. Knowledge nugget number 1, in most states, HOA covenants cannot override municipal safety requirements, especially when it involves soil erosion, drainage, or public utilities. Then a strange thing happened. Someone slid a photocopy under my door. No name, just a blurry page from what looked like an HOA board group chat. It read, "Engineer guy is a threat to our authority. If he gets away with this, others will follow." That's when I realized, this wasn't about a wall. This was a control battle. I did some digging, county records, corporate filings, even LinkedIn. And there it was. The real puppet master, a man named Carl Denton. He wasn't even on the board anymore, but every policy, every bylaw revision, his name was in the margins. Carl was a retired attorney who had helped write the HOA's covenants 20 years ago. He still pulled strings from behind the scenes. And here's the kicker, Carl's own property backed directly onto mine. He didn't like that my new wall blocked his seasonal view of the creek. Carl had a friend in the zoning office. I found out because I suddenly got a notice from the county alleging that my wall encroached on a utility easement. It didn't. I measured. Twice. But the notice triggered an inspection. Then the EPA letter came. Apparently, someone filed a complaint that my construction was interfering with wetland runoff. A total lie. The creek was 40 feet away. I had aerial drone footage to prove it. But EPA complaints require investigation. Knowledge nugget number 2, even anonymous EPA complaints trigger real probes, and malicious filings are a federal offense if proven. I felt like I was in a slow-burn horror movie. My neighbors were distant. My daughter asked why we didn't get invited to the block party. My mailbox got smashed, twice. I put together a Google Drive folder of every permit, every time-stamped inspection photo, and even drone footage with GPS overlay. Then I sent a printed copy to the board, with one sticky note. Screenshot this clause and tag a friend who needs HOA armor. Now I wasn't just defending, I was counterstriking. I hired a land use attorney who specialized in HOA abuse. She lit up when I mentioned Carl Denton. "He's infamous," she said. Got sued in '09 for targeting a Korean family's koi pond. Lost. I found 4 other residents who'd been quietly bullied, a woman fined for a wheelchair ramp, a veteran threatened over his flagpole, and 2 brothers told to remove solar panels that predated the HOA's existence. We filed a joint grievance. Then we filed an injunction. Depositions were scheduled. Carl Denton was subpoenaed. And during discovery, we got access to internal board emails. That's when the whole game flipped. One thread, dated 5 weeks before my first violation, showed Carl writing, "If we let him pour that wall, we lose the bluff. Precedent is poison. Smother this now. Smother this now." We took it to the local paper. The headline ran, "Retaining wall sparks power struggle in quiet HOA." The public started paying attention. A city councilwoman weighed in. "This is why HOA reform matters," she tweeted. "No volunteer board should override engineering safety." The court hearing was packed. Carl showed up in a navy suit, flanked by 2 board members. He looked annoyed to even be there. My attorney presented the permits. Then she showed the drone footage. Then she read Carl's email. The judge leaned forward. "Let me clarify, the HOA sought to fine this homeowner daily for a wall approved by a licensed engineer and permitted by the city." "Yes, Your Honor." The judge paused. Then said, "This court finds those fines unenforceable. HOA is ordered to reverse penalties and pay restitution for legal fees." But it didn't end there. Knowledge nugget number 3. If an HOA knowingly enforces non-compliant fines against a resident acting within municipal law, they can be liable for harassment and damages in small claims, or even district court. Carl Denton stood up, red-faced. "This isn't justice, it's media manipulation." The judge replied, "That's rich, coming from someone who manipulated a board from the shadows." We walked out into sunlight. My daughter was there, holding a hand-drawn sign, "Go, Dad." The HOA was forced to revise its policies, and Carl? He resigned from the advisory committee. I heard he moved to Arizona. The irony? That wall now serves as a model project in a city erosion guidebook. 2 other neighbors even asked for my contractor's number. And the board? They approved a scholarship fund using leftover legal fees for local kids going into civil engineering. But last week, I got a package. No return address. Just a key. A tiny brass key on a black string. Inside the envelope, a sticky note. "You may have won the wall. But you haven't seen the basement." Next week, the city that tried to steal a solar farm